Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duvel, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who has finally installed a mail carrier route in his Dwarf Fortress.
Oh, is that a thing? Tim Longo.
No, it's just because we're doing a mailbag episode on the podcast tonight. As far as I know, and I'm sure somebody will email me to correct me and say, well, if you get the Dwarven mail carrier mod for Dwarf Fortress, then you can have, you can exchange mail with other fortresses. But as yet, I have not discovered that in the build orders.
It seems like something they should do, but
you send out a mission with your
messengers,
party.
right? They have messengers, I think.
Do they?
Send to. I think there's a way. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I made it up. I feel like there's a way to. There is some mechanism for contacting another.
Of course, there is
group, but I don't remember how. If it's you actually send a dwarf, and then, they could get captured or killed, or like that seems like the logical thing to do in that world.
If they are, I hope the secretary will disavow all knowledge of their existence. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway.
Ooh, dwarven spies? Well, that's a good idea.
There you
what
go.
does that mean? You can have a mole
a dwarven,
inside another.
A mole? Aren't they all kind of moles?
Okay. Yeah. All right. I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very reductive for a dwarf to call them a mole.
Right. That's true.
Offensive.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. As a person who plays a dwarf, I get it. I play.
Exactly.
I play a halfling, and I probably wouldn't.
They're aloof. Those halflings.
I wouldn't take it too kindly if you were mocking me in that way. So as I alluded to, we're catching up a little bit on the mailbag this week. We have a tendency to draw some longer ones on occasion, so I'm just letting them ride. Normally, I edit them down, I cut out bits, and try to make it short and sweet. But these folks won the lottery. They get their whole email read on the cast, and I don't say get your own podcast. So that's happening. We actually also had a review, so that's cool. Of course, stuff was sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. Some of these have questions, some of them don't. All of them, I think, have some topics that are worth discussing or considering. So it's good to take a little more time than we normally do and catch up. And it's also, as I think somebody mentioned in the Discord, it would be fitting to end our series of text-based games with a mailbag. So,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so it has worked out. I'm going to let you go first because you have a review, and then I'll hit our first email.
Okay, here we go. Let's get through this text. Okay, subject: a refreshing way to enjoy games, from Cody Martin. I recently discovered this podcast by searching for a podcast related to Super Mario 64. Okay, well, that's highly specific, but awesome that you found us. And stumbled upon the old series, the two of them did. As I grow older, I appreciate the finer details and nuances in what makes a game work, in addition to great history and storytelling. Brett and Tim do an excellent job, and I've come to appreciate them and the fantastic content that they have put out. And as a new listener, have quite a backlog to go through. I've also decided to pick up and play some of the games they have done, since they have made it sound fun again when video games have lost their luster. Kudos to the two of them, especially keeping the podcast clean. That's always a bonus for me. Thank you, Cody. Very nice.
Thank you. Very nice. I do have to work pretty hard. Sometimes I have to edit Tim down quite a lot because of his tendency to go off on long jaunts of offensive language. But no, I'm kidding, of course. Probably it would be the other way around if we let ourselves fly.
No, it's just John Romero that we have to edit out.
That's true. We didn't. We just said that one was explicit. That's the one where it's you can't. We actually don't. It was that and the Vampire the Masquerade with Brian Mitsoda, I think, which were our least clean, because Vampire the Masquerade was a game in which they also used foul language.
Right.
And so he was like when people go to HBO with their comedy shows, and they're like, "Oh, you mean we can say the F word?" So yeah. But yeah, we do. I think somebody early on, maybe in the first year, sent mail and said, "Hey, could you or maybe just mentioned that they appreciated that, and then we actually made a real effort to do that, because sometimes people listen on their whatever their Alexas and their, I guess those are called Echoes or whatever, and the various things where kids can hear, or in the car or something like that. I listen to things in my car, so I get it. So, but anyway, I appreciate it very much, and keep on coming back. Yes, we have 343 episodes apparently now for you to listen to, with also some bonus ones. So the numbering scheme didn't really work out, but enjoy. All right, I'm going to take this first email. It is the ongoing saga from Colin the Shots, James Tiberius Tugas. When I was, this is for Diablo, and this one does have a question. When I was younger, we did not have a computer. I had to save up and purchase one with enough guts to play EverQuest, which ended up consuming most of my gaming time. I loved Diablo for PlayStation, though, and my friends and I would take turns. I had no idea it was an online game with PC. I feel like I missed out on a huge part of gaming history. Thanks for letting me live vicariously through your stories, though, and once again, that interview with David Brevik was so good. I'm curious about how your D&D campaigns go. Do you have any epic or hilarious stories you could share? Do you want to gather your thoughts about that one? I mean, I can think of some right off the top of my head with the one we're playing with you.
Sheesh. I mean, where to start, to be honest?
Yeah. Well, I'll go first. Anyway, thank you. We'll continue to make our way through these from Calling the Shots. So we've been playing Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is a published module from 5th edition and Tim's DMing. We're playing with colleagues, colleagues of ours, mostly Tim's colleagues from his 343 days, or in one case, somebody, Troy Mashburn, who I think we've mentioned before on the cast, from our Star Wars days, and also more recently. Anyway, there was a part where there was this dragon which was laying waste to the 10 towns in Icewind Dale. I don't remember how we got to it and got on its back.
But this was the Chardalyn.
Yeah, the Chardalyn Dragon, this construct. It wasn't a real dragon. It was like this constructed dragon, which was maybe powered by the heart of a red dragon or something, like, because we had gone into this tower with all these Duergar and stuff like that. So anyway, where I had ganked the king by being invisible. Anyway, so we flew up on this thing somehow. I don't remember how we caught up to it.
Griffins, and then I think, yeah.
Oh, we were on the Griffins. That's right. Yeah. And so we had these Griffins from these Goliaths that raised Griffins. We caught up to it, and we leapt off the back of the Griffins and jumped down onto the back of this dragon. And I jammed a piton into its back and tied a rope around it. And then we started losing our grip, and the Goliath fell off the back, but grabbed the rope. So you could see the whole thing, just playing out as a film of as my halfling and his Goliath, the two most disparate in size, were hanging off the back of this thing, and then finally landed. And that thing, I think it actually took me down. It may have also taken him down. I feel like 2 or 3 of us went down in the fight where we actually landed with the thing.
You mean down?
Well, we were knocked unconscious. Yeah, we weren't dead. Yeah. We were on death saving throws.
That could have been,
that could have been it for our party. It was a pretty deadly fight. I mean, dragons are tough, I hear.
I'm not going to talk about that story on there.
I have another
currently
one
happening.
Yeah, but go ahead. You have one that you want to relay from another.
Well, I mean, this one is really hard to, and I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of Brian, who's one of the players in Brett's game, but there is a bowling ball in the campaign.
The most important bowling ball in the universe is what
that our bard has, and I don't even remember. I think that was just part of his character.
It was part of his original equipment. He was just
he decided he wanted a bowling ball.
He wanted a 5-pound bowling ball. He just
so
I'm
dumb.
You can have a 5-pound bowling ball. Sure.
So it's a very defining, great, memorable thing. So It's wonderful. So he's had it from the beginning, and then in our first dungeon, there was this whole trap mechanism that he basically saved. He saved my life, I think.
Yeah, he saved
I think
your character's life. Yeah,
I had fallen inside this very convoluted trap, which to this day I could not describe to you how it works. Brett tried multiple times. He had visual aids. Anyway, long story. So anyway, I was trapped in this thing, and he used his bowling ball to like wedge into the mechanics of the trap to allow me to get out. But we had to leave the bowling ball there. Fast forward, there was a sort of a holiday episode. I'm not going to go into details.
Yeah,
but
this was 7 months later.
7 months later. Yeah, literally, real time. We've been playing this campaign since COVID started, right? So
May of 2020.
3.5 years or something, 3 years. And so, long story short, we were granted a boon, a request, a wish, sort of at the end of this sort of holiday thing as a gift that Brett was giving us, and I think my gift was to save, reinstate, I don't know, bring back his bowling ball. And so he has his bowling ball back at that point. And then fast forward like 6 more months or a year or something, we're like higher level, probably level 12 or 10 or something around there, 11. We're on another plane, and this bowling ball,
who by now has become his familiar. Like
who's now a familiar, yeah. He
became an intelligent bowling ball after he regained it. So he's got a bowling ball as a familiar. Even though he's not a wizard, he's a bard. He's still got a familiar, which is,
and he can ask it to go seek out things and things. And I don't remember. You might have to fill me in on the exact. I don't remember exactly how it came to pass, but through the conclusion, the climax of this chapter, where we were on this other plane, we were basically kind of dispelling this sort of dark force that was all sort of, we had to go through these trials and blah, blah, blah. And then we get to the final room, basically the boss fight. And the bowling ball sacrifices itself in some fashion.
Jumps
to
into
save
this huge pillar of like fire, radiant energy fire, to save the rest of you, basically.
Yeah. And in doing so, becomes the ruler of that plane. And so now we have a bowling ball with this smoking eye that is, long story, related to the plane, and it is now a god, basically. And our bard is carrying it around, and every so often we're kind of a little creeped out by the fact that this very powerful bowling ball is. But it's such a hilarious, like, every chapter, every year, the bowling ball had some role to play, and it's still.
Oh, that's funny. Some role to play. So it's it is intelligent. It's a familiar, so it's been improving over time, and it has like special abilities as well that I've been trying to find a niche for the bowling ball. So it can of course trip people in combat. It's self-ambulatory, but it can also do clairvoyance and clairaudience and other things. So it's the bowling.
But I mean, that's just the beginning. Like both campaigns have. Yeah. Brett's character.
I mean, I was going to go on about the T-Rex.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that was good.
Oh my God. Yeah. So we had some real good times lately.
Well, you also had a slod. You were the host for a slod.
I was a slod host,
and that was basically carved out of you, a la Alien.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was
in this old cabin.
Yeah, somebody did detect evil to see if I had turned evil or something, and they looked and like, oh, he's not evil, but there's something in his belly that is. And so they pinned me to a table and carved it out of me. We play on Saturday. Well, we were at that time playing on Saturday mornings, and it was a little rough to be happening before noon on a Saturday to have my character stomach open. So yeah, we've had some good times. Yours is a more direct horror campaign, so it's particularly funny that it's pretty grim. And mine has had some horrific elements. So we will see what happens with the bowling ball going forward. The bowling ball has been very entertaining. Brian is very
the bowling ball's name is
BB, of course, yeah. After BB whatever from the new Wars. The new Star Wars.
So. Isn't it the name? Isn't it also BB the name of Is it what's that JRPG action game?
Oh, that's Vivi.
Vivi? Okay.
Are you thinking
No,
Final Fantasy
no.
9?
No. It's the one with the character with the blindfold on.
Right. Yeah, that's 2B.
2B. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we digress.
That's near Automata. Yeah. Though it is funny that you have a bowling ball that's an automata, and actually its face is the head. So we have I put icons for everything, and I use the head of the designer. He wears that mask. He doesn't. Mm-hmm. He's not visible in public. So Brian's idea was that it would have that face, and so that's the icon. Of course, now with a smoking eye as well. So. Yep, when that comes out to play, you see that designer's mask. I forget his name. It'll come to me, or I'll look it up. Anyway, let's move on to email one for you.
We're definitely not going to get through all these at this point.
That is probably true. No, I don't think they all have questions that are going to.
I'm kidding. We'll be okay, but it's just funny how long it takes us. Okay, next email.
Yep.
Okay, counting frames from Oliver UV. Definitely your real name. Hello. Definitely. Jason Grinblatt of Freehold Games had a great talk at Roguelike Celebration. In it, he discussed the subjective experience of playing games. He analyzed it through the lens of frames. What's a frame? It's a point of view that we inhabit. A way of relating to the world or our experience of the world. Imagine you're playing a tabletop RPG. In one frame, you're inhabiting your character and trying to make decisions as they would. You do your best to imagine what their experience is like. Oh, this is very relevant. You're trying to forget that you are playing a game.
It's almost like you have a producer.
Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, we do. I don't know. I still haven't met this person, but I think we have one out there someplace. Another frame is one where your character is in combat and you are trying to win. Perhaps you know the rules or do your best to maximize your chance of winning with that knowledge. You are aware that you are playing a game. In yet another frame, you're having a pleasant evening with your friends. You're all trying to have the most fun possible together, so you abstain from excessive metagaming or rules lawyering, even if this means decreased chance of winning. You try to play your character in a way that'll be enjoyed by both you and your friends. Perhaps you make a stupid decision because it'll be fun. It'll be a fun experience, or perhaps you make a smart one because your character wouldn't be dumb, or vice versa. You inhabit all of these frames at the same time, sort of. Jason Grinblatt discusses game players' experience of bugs and other unintended gaming things through this lens. I strongly recommend this. Listening to this talk. Where am I going with this? Last episode, you talked about whenever. Okay. Was it literally last episode?
No, it was a couple maybe 2 or 3 ago. Yeah.
Okay, last episode, you talked about how you didn't want to look through the wikis while playing. That's valid, and how I play most games. I didn't play Dwarf Fortress this way. You didn't play Dwarf Fortress this way. My experience of Dwarf Fortress was reading the chronicles of Boat Murdered.
Oh,
what is
you read that right? I think that's just a creator, like in Dark Souls. There's that guy who explains all the lore. I think Boat Murdered has had some particular enjoyable Dwarf Fortress chronicles.
Yeah, right. Experiencing a game through content creators. Yeah, it's a whole big topic. Yeah, before the Steam release, I think this was most players' first experience of Dwarf Fortress. A few years later, I watched Krugsmash's excellent Dwarf Fortress-based stories on YouTube. Wow, I definitely should look these up. Then I decided to take the plunge, and along with install instructions, found a link to a beginner's guide, PDF, 130 pages, I think it was. I also got the Dwarf Therapist mod, which seems to be considered essential. What? My experience of Dwarf Fortress was through the frame of enjoying the game in a way that was designed by both the Adamses and the players to be a good introduction to the game. The whole experience is the game. It feels like experiencing Dwarf Fortress without the community stuff would be like playing the late 90s game without reading the manual, but like a really amazing manual with great storytelling, like that of Homeworld. I think the frame of experiencing the game along with the community of players is essential to Dwarf Fortress. All this is not to try to convince you to look through wikis, but to encourage everyone to read Boat Murdered and to check out Krug Smash.
Maybe Krug Smash, who knows? Yeah.
They're both great additions to Dwarf Fortress experience, in my opinion. Homework is an EVE Online guild leader playing the game when they spend weeks logged out of the game, but still coordinating guild members via chats and through chat and forums. If you've played Frog Fractions, in which frames did that experience strike you the most? Is it an artist making fan art of TTRPG streamers' characters playing the game? Have a great real name. Everybody. Oliver UV.
Oliver.
That was a journey.
Was a journey. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about it in the context of D&D a little bit because, of course, when I was a kid, my opportunities to play were we played at school during the lunch hour every day back when students still had an hour for lunch. Shows you how old I am. But we had time where we would play like during the end of lunch and recess. So we would play every day. But then I was reading the books. I was drawing maps. I was, doing all these things that were sort of outside the sit at the table and play experience. Right. And the question is, are you playing the game then? Yeah. And I would say yes. To take it on a different tack, Brenda Romero, who designed Train, which is a board game. You can look it up, but it is a game that sneaks up on you because once you understand its iconography or maybe read a card, it reveals that you are enacting the Holocaust. That you are a player who is like enacting orders for the Holocaust, and it's got all the the way it's built. There's only one copy of the game. This is not a replicable game. It's a art piece, but it's also a playable game. And she always says if she asks you, "Do you want to play the game?" and you decline, she says, "Then you've already played the game. You've played the game, even in declining, because you've already thought about what it means to play that game." Mm-hmm. And so her theory is that, even thinking and making a decision about whether you want to play that game is playing the game, to take it on kind of more serious tack. So I see what Oliver Of is doing here and suggesting that we're still playing the game if we read the wikis and watch the videos and read the Boat Murdered stories. In fact, to date, my only experience of EverQuest is reading about some bard who I can't remember. There's like a level cap before you hit it. There's no PvP. And so he stayed beneath that, but like leveled up his ability to train monsters and would just like drag monsters through through to other players. Like he would train giants. Training is, in this context, is like when you grab something. Kiting is another way it's called.
Kiting,
where you go and you go and you kind of drag them. They want to attack you, and you keep out of range of them, and they keep coming after you, and you drag them along with you into other players. So he was basically griefing, and they couldn't do anything about it because he was.
They can't.
Because they can't hit him. So
yeah.
I forget who that was, but it was extremely. Reading those adventures made me want to play the game, and yet I never have. Anyway, so those are some lenses that I've played games through. I have looked at the wiki since this email came in for a couple mechanics that I didn't understand, and was trying to get a little deeper in the game. But I only a couple times towards the end of the playthrough or the cast. I can't say a playthrough. The end of the play that I did that. So
yeah, I think And I mean, I'm with him for sure, and I think he did a good job at Oliver did a good job at breaking down, or I guess presenting the thesis. And I mean, being a big MMO player and generally being somebody who goes pretty deeply into like I do play a lot of games at once. I think for a general person, but I stick with once I find a game that I really like, I do tend to stick with it quite heavily. And there is always that point when I cross over to being obsessed and then going deep into joining the community essentially and making that a part of the game experience. So I'm with him on that. One example would be Sea of Thieves. Um, for me,
you did go deep on Sea of Thieves.
yeah, and there was a point when I was like, okay, I'm going to start engaging with the community, learning more than I'm able to find in the game, et cetera, et cetera. And it is definitely an enriching experience. It might have been my comment, but about Dwarf Fortress, but it's definitely a perspective that I have for Dwarf Fortress specifically when it comes to us mentioning that we didn't want to read wikis. Part of it is for the podcast, but to be honest, like I'll use Valheim as another example because I'm maybe 250 hours I've played that game so far, and multiple seeds that I've started. And for me, the sense of discovery in video games, especially certain genres, is really like a big part of why I play. And as Brett knows, and we've talked about on the podcast from time to time, like I'm also like generally an anti-spoilers kind of person because I love those moments where it feels like I have been driven to discover the thing that I discovered. And I feel like wikis too early for me can take that away. And it's not to say that they diminish the experience or that they are, bad way to play or anything. It's just more of I really enjoy the same thing with Dark Souls when I played through that, right? It's like I could have looked up so many things, but I just set up goals for myself and then played that way. And for me at least, that sense of discovery is so huge. And Valheim to this day, I don't think I've played the game essentially 3 times, and I don't think I've opened a wiki yet. And I don't necessarily think it's a lesser experience. I just think it's different. And that's watching people discover the way that I discovered in that, and especially survival games are good at this. There's just something about it. There's just something magical about like that. Like, oh, you didn't see that coming, And with Dwarf Fortress, it's like, the first time I put down a well, like we talked about last episode, that's like, I could have looked that up and figured it out much more easily, but that sense of achievement there was pretty profound.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a person who really very rarely, I might look up stuff kind of when I'm getting towards the end and like, did I miss anything cool? Is there something I want to make sure I go try? Or if it's like, I'm at a point where I'm trying to do all the achievements or something like that. That's when I tend to go look for stuff. I think it's also partly just, the way, we came up and there was no internet. There wasn't a way to engage with games, with computer games, unless you were engaging also with your friends who were playing the same games. But, that was not often the case for me. We just didn't tend to have those sorts of conversations unless they were literally games we were playing in a shared space. We were at somebody's home who had a console and we were playing something. So those are kind of the only occasions where I had those kinds of interactions. So it's actually been very, very rare for me to even do that. But, there are games that we play on the cast where I stop and think, I end up thinking about the games a lot and try stuff. And, when I'm not at the computer, or have the controller in my hand or whatever. That I spend a lot of time thinking about them and try stuff and like, I wonder if you could do this. Like that's when a game really gets under my skin is when I'm trying to push the systems as far as they can go and really figure out what this thing has to offer. But yeah, I would say, sure. You're still playing the game. Oh, damn. I just lost the game. So
Well, I mean, speaking to the tabletop um, metaphor in this, and the way that we both play D&D, to call back to the previous mail, um, Roll20 is the platform we play on, because we play remotely. Everyone actually in all of our games, no one's near each other, with kind of a few exceptions. But and so Brett does a lot more Roll20 work, or I'll say quote unquote play, than I do. But we both have to be in Roll20 when we're not playing with the players, and it does feel like it's because it's all in the same tool. It's like it's all the game, right? We're all playing, even though it's preparation and in your case a lot of coding and stuff. But
well, also making maps and things like that. Right now, you're in a section where I've made all the maps by hand on my my iPad. I've been drawing in Procreate and doing art. So
yeah, that was great. That last one.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm getting there. As I was telling folks last night, I've made it to about 1979 Dragon magazine. Which, if you've ever seen Dragon magazines from back in the day, the art is not their finest feature. But those guys got paid, so there's hope for me yet. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for the email, Oliver. Oliver's in the Discord, and he is a real reference point, especially for roguelikes. I mean, there was a lot of discussion with Oliver about those, so shout that out as well. Let's see here. Email 2 for me. The subject is Combat Wombat, Dwarf Love Triangles. I misread that. Dwarf Love Triangles and 6 years, from Johnny Pockets Gratan.
Pockets.
Good day, gentlemen. He said good day, gentlemen, but as he's an Australian, I had to.
Oh, boy.
Wow, I'm so blown away by how good the Dwarf Fortress series is going. I feel it fits perfectly to your book club formula. It's a joy to listen to. I literally yelled out, "Wackadoo!" when I heard you were going to try the Steam version, because I am 100% ready to try it with you. To be honest, I did not really say wackadoo, but I did want to hear Tim try and pronounce it. So I am happy in the anticipation that I have succeeded. Sorry, Pockets, I got it. He says, cheers to Calling the Shots. It is Calling the Shots' fault that I am writing this email, if that is his real name, is a correspondent in EP 340 and following. This email has been brewing for a while, but Colin tipped me over. I hear how the Shots associates some key memories he has of his 6-month-old son, and anticipates how DGC will forever unlock memories of his kid's first year of life. Well, cheers to you, the Shots, and congratulations. I can attest to recalling the memories of the first year of my daughter's life, and those being intertwined with DGC. And I have a Tim Longer Jr. level memory. I have a vivid memory of playing with my daughter in her red polka dot dress, with the afternoon sun spilling into our old apartment, dappled from the bushes outside. That was the first time I hear one of my correspondences being read on air. It was particularly memorable due to the humorous way Brett delivered it. That was 6 years ago, and my wonderful daughter is going to be graduating from her kindergarten tomorrow and will be entering elementary school a few weeks later. DGC means a lot. He's got a whole bunch of sections here. This section is a complete game. While I was trying to get into Minecraft, one of the things that I really found difficult was the seeming necessity to jump out of the game and consult wikis or guides. See, there's a producer at work here. You can feel the invisible hand to figure out how to do basic things. I feel this is breaking something of the magic of the game. Ultimately, this became a quote-unquote shelf-level event. I stopped playing. Of course, Minecraft is hugely popular, so I'm happy for them, but I'm eager to hear your take on this in regards to Dwarf Fortress. How do you find Dwarf Fortress in this respect, and can you think of a way to avoid the sort of problem I am feeling with a game like Minecraft while still incorporating the community? So we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Interviews, please. Oh, please get an interview for Dwarf Fortress. I feel there are so many open questions and so much speculation on your part that it would be great to get some closure. Like you, I want to know how they decided what to include in the game. What product management techniques did they use? How did they manage what I imagine would be a massive backlog? Do they have a list of feature requests somewhere? Because if they do, in the done pile, they must have something like, quote, I want a combat wombat to attack my dwarfs, and, quote, I want a dwarf love triangle. Note, I got the love triangle feature from a colleague when he was telling me about his experience with the game the other day down at the local water cooler. And if they have those written down, what else do they have? The people want to know. Episodes 1 to 340. I recently went back through and listened to all the yearly review episodes, as well as some of the memorable interview episodes. While I was listening, I took some notes on some of the things I most appreciate, and some thoughts on what you might want to do more of. I don't mean to presume, but I thought you might appreciate reflecting on these points. It says what he particularly appreciates are the developer point of view. Most podcasts are from the consumer point of view. For posterity, recording for history. It's our party. We do what we want. Casual, your two friends having a chinwag, and the book club format with the water cooler talk. Here are some things that I think you guys like doing and that you might want to do more of. Interviews. When you can't get someone related to the game, do what you did for Zelda and get a super fan. For example, if you ever come back to WoW, you could get friend of the show Jeff Kanata of the DLC podcast. Side note, Tim, I restarted Dungeon Run. Double interviews.
Oh, wow.
Yep, getting two people at the same time. Diversity of roles. It's always super interesting to hear the different perspectives, especially when you have more than one interview for the same game. Follow themes to decide what game to do next. A great example is the text-based games you're currently looking at. How about racing games? How about fighting games? See, these are these genres that people are like, hey, you guys should do a fighting game. And I realize, like, we don't even know where to begin. Thorough research and scholarly discussion. Just kidding. Never change this. While I was listening, I found one of my emails from about 5 years ago where I asked you to imagine you were starting a games company together and to tell us about what you might set for your pillars and principles. I will just leave that there. Farewell.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for your hard work. I remember that email. Regards, Pockets. So, postscript. This is the second series in a row where you have talked about killing wombats. In the previous series, Brett was shooting wombats in Beggar's Canyon. As an Australian, I feel I must protest on behalf of my native fauna. So there you go. And good day, sir. Or good day. So the question was, this kind of follows on, and we actually talked about it quite a lot with Oliver of, I mean, I actually think it's amazing to say this, but I actually think Dwarf Fortress does a better job of teaching you than Minecraft does. Because when I started Minecraft, I had no idea how to craft anything. And I don't know at what point I was on, like, where was it a pre-release? Like, I have no idea. I could not tell you, like, what version of Minecraft it was. But I was totally stuck. Like, I couldn't figure out anything to do. And even the early versions of Dwarf Fortress kind of gave you enough. You know, there was text that you could go and read that could tell you some things to try. So you could at least get started. So it doesn't involve the community in that sense, but it did at least point us in the right direction to get started. Do you have any thoughts about that, sir?
Yeah, I had a pretty unique experience with Minecraft because I did play it from its earliest early access days, being kind of the progenitor of early access, to be honest. And that was while we were at LucasArts back in my first run, and we were on Republic Commando, I think, at the time. And so when I was playing it, I had the community I was playing it with was people at work. And so we would play and compare notes, and this, so I had kind of like a weird echo chamber version of that because we were all discovering together, and there probably were wikis forming at the time, but it was very much like, oh, did you figure out that recipe? And, or even how crafting works or blah, blah, blah. And so my vague memory of it was that there was like this small group of us that were playing and kind of trying to figure it out together. And then I just, Minecraft's the kind of game where
I think it was at your second tour, but it says early private testing versions, yeah.
No, definitely wasn't. It was. I do remember it was the early. This was alpha, basically. I'm talking about. This was like before they had. Let's see. Was it before they had nighttime, or was it before they had enemies at night? I remember when they patched in that night became super dangerous because it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my gaming life.
It definitely changes things.
Yeah. But anyway, all that is to say is like, yeah, I mean, C, previous answer to the previous mail for me, because I really probably unrealistically hold the line. So it's interesting to get Oliver and then Johnny's, well done, producer, because they're definitely the two sides of the same coin there. Because I agree. I mean, that sense of discovery, like when you find your first diamond and you're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
I have diamond now, or redstone, right? It's like, what is redstone? And then you start discovering. And then the way that they had the grid-based crafting in that also promoted experimentation, which I also loved. And, games have copied it since. And I'm sure they got it from someplace too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm with Johnny in that I think it's it really was, if I dug too deeply, then I was, I felt like I was kind of ruining the experience for myself. But I'm old, and like Brett said, we come from a generation where, the content creation and the sort of community based aspect of it wasn't always the priority. On the flip side of that, for me though, and he mentioned WoW, I think getting Kanata on is a brilliant idea, and we maybe should think about that. WoW was the opposite for me, because I played it so hardcore, and I was just ravenously playing it all the time. I actually fully embraced the community, the wiki. I was on what was the name of that? There were a couple really famous Wowhead and a couple famous community sites that really gave you stats on stuff before the game incorporated it. And then the weird thing that happened there was that the game started incorporating features that the community had created, right? And also they had an open API HUD or UI, so the modding scene was really robust. So anyway, it's just that game is such a weird, because again, the modding community those features ended up being added to the game essentially in many cases, the popular ones. So where was I going with that? Oh, and then the last thing I'll say about Minecraft is that I had a renaissance with Minecraft when my daughter became old enough to play it and she had interest, and that was a whole different experience, right? Because I'm living it through, seeing it through her eyes, and then she got into the books, and so then we had it was like this kid who was discovering it at the same time, and then we were reading the books and looking at all the strategies that way, because she wanted to perfect, she wanted to be good at the game. So yeah, weird journey there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the cast is it sort of reflects an experience we enjoyed while we were at LucasArts, where we had a, what was it called? Was it just LEC Games? We just had you're talking
about the game theory group?
Yeah, game theory group, right? Where we basically would bring people together on a monthly or every couple of months kind of basis, and everybody would play the same game, or somebody would maybe present a game that was kind of popular or in the public eye, and we would just kind of discuss it, as both as game fans and players, but also as professionals, and people bringing stuff that they thought was interesting, and just having several saves and showing, and then you get this, and this is the progression through the game, and these interesting things happen. And I can remember any number. I mean, some of the people we work with still today, presenting or being in part of those discussions. Harley, in particular, Harley Baldwin White Guido, who was in our Republic Commando thing a couple of years ago in our series there as an interview. She was in there, quite a number of folks. I mean, basically all the people who were in the design department on the games that I worked on the time I was there would come to game theory from time to time. So, and this podcast is like a narrower version of that, with more time spent, with each game. So, we're kind of reflecting that experience back. So that's always been my community as far as playing and discussing games, because I didn't do much of it as a kid. Didn't do much, hardly did any at college. I guess there was Ultima 7 I played with a friend, and that's it. And that was my whole shared game experience. In grad school, Diablo and Doom were two games I played a lot with the community, because we played Doom on a LAN in the graphics lab, on the OpenGL native machines, and then I went to work in the industry, and I
Yeah, everything changes.
Who played what everybody was playing, for years, and now I can't keep up. So now I hope at some point I'll get to my backlog. I will probably still be playing PS3 games 10 years from now because I've still got some I haven't played, so that I want to play.
A recent example for me, actually, of switching over yet again is Dark Souls. After I finished it through my butter knife run, if that's what we're calling it, I did a New Game Plus, and I'm still playing the New Game Plus, and I do want to dabble in it from time to time and go back to it. I don't know if I'll play it fully again, but I did immediately go to wikis after I finished because I looked up the Onion Knight quest and stuff I missed there. Like I started basically because it just was so fun to discover stuff in that game. I don't even know what
that is. Yep.
The Onion Knight. I thought you did the Onion Knight.
Oh, the Onion Knight. Oh, the Onion Knight. Right. Sorry. I was thinking about the Artorias thing and all of that.
Oh,
but I did find the Onion Knight. That's true.
Yeah, and just the different outcomes. Anyway.
I don't think I found all of it.
Well, there's different endings basically with it and stuff, and I just really enjoyed, because I streamed it, I really enjoyed being a part of a community around that game in particular. And I'm enjoying that with Dark Souls 2 if I ever get back to it. But so once I go through it once, I feel like I am, and that's what I did with Sea of Thieves too. Once I got to a certain point, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go in and go deep. So
yeah,
there's always that moment.
It's always useful to us too, as developers, to know like where we kind of, what we might have missed and why we missed it, as well, and whether we wish we had seen it and how we might have foregrounded it. Right? There's always that professional aspect for me of thinking about games where I do look things up. Like, how could I have avoided looking this up? Or is it important to have looked this up? My deep history as a old gaming nerd makes me think, well, how does this get presented in the game? But knowing that games are going to have wikis and walkthroughs and whatever, it's something to be aware of. Do you bury some stuff so deep that it takes people a while to get to it? There are developers who are like, don't use a walkthrough for our game, or only play our game once. In the case of The Walking Dead season 1, for example, so developers have tried to reach out. I mean, and I think honestly, they only really reach other developers because I think we're the only ones that are actually, we're probably most of the people get. I'm sure some diehard fans get those messages as well, but I don't know. It's an interesting topic, community around games. All right, why don't you tackle the next one, which, look at this, happens to be about Dark Souls. How did I predict that? Oh, amazing.
Speaking of Dark Souls and sort of this topic of like, when are you playing the game and stuff, I have a quick plug for a book that I saw this weekend that I'd never heard of. I just saw it in a bookstore. It's called Video Game Atlas, Mapping Interactive Worlds by Luke Casper Pearson and Sandra Yukana. It is an amazing coffee table kind of book, and they have Dark Souls in there. And basically they've kind of like recreated the worlds through wireframe, this really unique wireframe vector kind of art throughout this book. And it's it's maxi size book, so it's a really big. And it has Assassin's Creed in there. It has Dark Souls, Death Stranding. There's a few different things. So I didn't buy it. It was way too expensive, but I did flip through it. And if anyone's interested in sort of like, especially level design, it's amazing to see basically the entire Dark Souls 1 world laid out and kind of how it all interconnects and all that stuff. And I'm sure there's plenty of maps out there that do that, but in this book format is really neat. Anyway.
Yeah, that's super cool. Actually, I'll mention another Dark Souls book. It's by Keza McDonald and Jason Killingsworth, and it's called You Died. And it's about Dark Souls, as you might have guessed. And it is specifically
Oh, I want to play that game right now.
No, right? It's about the lore and like what you can learn about the lore from the game, and they kind of recreate the lore of the. I haven't read it, but now that I played them, I hadn't thought about the book until you mentioned this other one just now. So I'll plug that as well because that's one of the ones I've always wanted to get back and read. And now that you've mentioned it, I will probably track it down. So
you're going to read a book about lore?
I might for that game. Yeah.
Yeah, for that game.
Yep.
So is it about Dark Souls 1 lore, or like if you were to read
the
it
whole
before
series? It came out after the series was done, and I think it's the whole shebang.
Maybe I should wait then.
You might want to wait. Yeah.
Okay. Which will never be never, but we'll see. Okay, so hi. Here comes June. Sorry, I think she was barking earlier. You might have heard it.
I did not, but maybe they picked it up.
All right. You mentioned that Dark Souls' budget must have been smaller than that of the Assassin's Creeds and Call of Duties of the world, which is almost certainly true. But but it reminded me of something I've been wondering about for years. How much does it actually cost to make a game like Dark Souls? From and Bamco, my new favorite Bandai Namco combo. Thank you, Michael. Don't seem to be telling. The reason why I think it's an interesting question is that while Dark Souls may not look the part of a AAA game, it's extremely content rich in ways that very few other games are. Consider how many distinct areas there are, that most of them have their own unique cast of enemies, not simple ones either. Most of them have a ton of different animation behaviors, with only a small amount of overlap between them, and then add the enormous amount of weapons and armor to the pile. I can think of a few titles that rival Dark Souls in terms of enemy variety, but they're all live service games that have been going on for a decade plus. Meanwhile, from what I can tell, nothing outside of From's catalog even comes close as far as meaningfully differentiated weapons, differentiated weapons go. Could it be that Dark Souls was actually more expensive than you think, than you may have guessed, but From spent the money in different ways or different places? Sorry, I'm transposing all sorts of words here. In different places than most developers would. Otherwise, how did they manage to get so much in there? Thanks for the cast, Michael Justice. I hope that is your real name.
With great justice. Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. That is definitely a differentiator for that game, and something. Yeah, it may be that it's I mean I think that you could actually put Skyrim in this camp as well as like a game that goes really really wide. Not in their case super deep, but it's an awful lot of content, and like the polish as a result suffers. We'll say that it doesn't. That it just has a different kind of vibe, and and that vibe is also different from Dark Souls. In both cases, they have just a different sort of thing. I mean, I do think that there is a lot involved in making a game that feels like Dark Souls does. That is not an easy game to just build. So it's fair to point out. I mean, that is a game I think that had to be iterated on and iterated on and iterated on and iterated on, and I think, in order to achieve that, they kind of have to leave it at a different level of fidelity, like not go super deep on polish, because it's not going to be like the super polished press the button here. We're not going to quick time it and signal hit the button now. So we can't like perfectly animate that thing, or I don't know. I just kind of feel like the development methodology feels like it has to be different to make that happen. That's maybe something you can speak to better than I can, because you're the designer type here.
Well, I think because they chose, and not to like go deep yet again on this game, because we have spent however many episodes on it, but because they chose to make a game that's about responsiveness and player intentionality, they're willing to, and this is an endless debate that one animation director that you and I both know. He and I have
Mm.
that which he agrees with. I'm being snarky. We're aligned, but there's always a fine line with that. But once you decide to go in that direction, then you're willing to take on different. To Michael's point, you're willing to take on a focus of quality in different areas than other games because you need to break that frame no matter what, because the player has pressed a button or moved the stick or done something, and it's going to look janky. But that's okay because it's way more important to have that responsiveness because this game is focused on combat and like surgical combat. And that's what I ended up becoming really fell in love with about the game. And not really, I mean, I knew it intellectually because people would tell me, but I didn't really get it until I beat Artorias with a bandit's knife. I'm never going to let people forget that.
No, you're certainly not.
It's one of my proudest moments of gaming history.
Some people are calling the butter knife run, is what I'm hearing. It's like, oh my God, get over yourself. Jesus.
I know. I don't have many gaming triumphs in my life, and I don't think
it's a good one. I enjoyed watching it. I went and watched it. So
but anyway, yeah. But I guess to his point on budget, I think so. Even though the weapon variety is there, and as I'm sort of in my New Game Plus, even dabbling a little bit with some other weapons, even though you did a lot more experimentation than I did, it's not necessarily systemic, but they're layering in. I think they're putting their money in the right places because I still don't think the budget was probably huge, and I won't even I won't even guess, and I won't even venture to guess. And also remember the time and the platforms that it came out, right? The era that it came out. So it was a different time. But I still think, when you put it into moves and weapon sets and things like that, which can be used on every enemy, and the enemy move sets don't change, but you change as a player. And the level design doesn't change, but you change as a player. That's the smarter way to do it. Because the reason, which was not the reason I brought up the book, but now in retrospect, looking at, basically a gatefold of the whole world of Dark Souls, it actually isn't as big as you think when you look at it all at once. But because of the kind of game they made, it's like you spend, Undead Parish, I probably have 50 hours in that freaking place, and it's just this one linear, really not that long, like in my New Game Plus, right? It's like, well, actually,
I mowed through that whole area.
I still had some trouble. But,
oh wow! I went all the way through the gargoyles before I died the first time.
Yeah, and I'm almost there in my. Yeah. But I'm not. I'm also in my New Game Plus. I'm not using a shield, so it's been challenging.
Yeah. Also, I was like super power leveled.
That's right. You were. Yeah.
The reason why I was trying different weapons. Well, the reason why part of the reason why I had to power levels was because I would get a weapon and I'd be like, oh, I can't use this. I need a strength of like 50 or whatever, and or 40 or something. And I'd basically like, well, I guess I'm going to go get 20 levels so I can wield this gigantic hammer. And the thing is, I never got really good at any individual moveset at all. Like, you're probably way better with your butter knife than I am with any of my weapons. I just had kind of just like so many levels, that I was like, oh, I'm just kind of going through this on power, which it's a possible way to play the game. But, I don't think you learn all the intricacies of those movesets. I did look up subsequent to playing the game, just, what were good builds. Cause in Dark Souls 3, I had a lot more invasions. And I don't remember why. It was like one particular area that I was farming or something that if you were in there and you had a certain something equipped, it's like a trinket basically, it would draw people in, like that they want to come fight you. It was like a flare saying, hey, come fight me. And I'd always go and I'd just kind of like stand and watch them run around the level because they would think I was going to come and meet them. And I'd just kind of hide and just kind of stand in places and see if they would find me. And, some did, some didn't. It was always very satisfying when they'd finally give up and just go home. But those people I could tell really knew like what they were doing, Whereas I was just like, I hope I get in some lucky hits because otherwise it's not going to go well. I did also invade some other people too. I got called to invade because of the same reason in different areas. And it would be the same thing there. In some cases I would win, some cases I would lose, but I wasn't able to, I was the one hunting at that point. I was like, well, I'm here. I might as well go see what these people can do. So that was always very entertaining. But you could tell that they knew so much more about how they animate, where the frames were and like all the different moves. And I'd go look that stuff up later. I was like, oh, wow, you can do that? It's like, oh, I had no idea. I mean, it makes sense. I've seen an enemy do that. I should have realized that was a thing I could do, but I didn't know how to do it. So yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. So, wow, we got to an hour already.
Is intentionality a word? Did I make that up?
Intentionality? No, that's a word. That's a word.
Okay. I thought about it afterwards, like intentionality. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's one of your designery words, but it
is.
Yeah,
it's very designery, and I don't like it sometimes.
It is. Well, it's actually in philosophy as well, so that's why I know it's a word. All right, I have one here from Jafool, a longtime friend of the cast. Dwarf Fortress is the subject. Hey guys, love the show as always. It's been a blast listening to you play Dwarf Fortress. You probably don't realize it because you experienced this in real time, but each episode is a very funny slice of you two talking about what you know of Dwarf Fortress, miles beyond how you spoke about it last week. I'm sure you're aware you've learned a lot, but it's probably even more than you realize. I really hope you can get Tarn on. There's one thing that makes big differences if you choose to continue playing, a manager. And I want to point out that we also got an email from Sam who just sent a brief like, hey, you can get this to happen with a manager. That I want to actually make sure. Yeah, Sam Thomas, who we've heard from a number of times before. Make sure I had that right. With a manager, you can set conditions for automating some workshop tasks. Example, a rule saying that if you have more than 100 logs and fewer than 5 unused beds, make 6 more to bring that total up to 10.
Wow.
Beds, doors, alcohol, etc. Having a manager also lets you make a production order from that menu that will distribute the task to all the available shops of a type. So rather than manually assigning make 3 beds at Carpentry Workshop A and 3 at Carpentry Workshop B, it will split the task between any open carpentry workshops. The manager's menu also lets you search. Just searching for rock ring will let you make a production order and make them at the correct workshop. And something I hope you'll take half an hour to do, even if you're done playing, go off the beaten path. The places the game doesn't recommend you build in. Try a haunted area just to see what it's like. Maybe find a huge waterfall. Seriously, check out an ocean coastline in Glyph View. If you lose your current fortress, reclaim a fort. It doesn't even have to be one of your forts. Reclaim a fort that was abandoned by a civilization 100 years ago in World Gen. Whoa. Don't even plan to stay there. Just check them out. They're pretty great. It's a beautiful game, and yes, they've been working on it for 20 years, but this has been a standard bearer for me in gaming for most of those years. Easily in my top 5. As always, thanks for the podcast, Jafool.
Wow.
Yeah, we referred to the manager last week. I talked a little bit about how I'm not entirely sold on the decision because it was already a menu. Like I'm still wrestling with that one as with my design brain, like how I feel about it. But I'm glad it's possible. So there's at least that. Because I think
it sounds like it might unlock the menu though. Maybe I misunderstood. Like the manager just
it makes it easier to see the it unlocks the planning aspects. So there's a thing that you can't do without it. Like you can't with the broker is the same way where you can send somebody to trade, but you won't be able to see something like, and having an actual broker makes that better. And then, so they do this. This is kind of an idiomatic thing for them that they do in several places, but yeah, that was, and Sam had also sent it maybe a week before Jafool or maybe a few days. So I had a few emails, and that was one thing I looked up a little bit and was like, okay, that's too involved for me right now. So I get it. And I think there's definitely value there, but also like I'm getting to my end of the time I'm going to spend with Dwarf Fortress. So
it's a stressful game. I mean, I'm sure it becomes less stressful over time, but all the stuff you just mentioned, all the just different things you can, it's just crazy.
I would love to play I would like to play the adventurer mode once that's available.
And what is that then? Is that give you like a goal?
I believe it's basically like go have an adventure, like you're controlling a character or maybe a small party. I don't know. I'll look it up now while we talk. But
wild.
But it's like the world is there. Go be in it.
That's clever.
Yep.
So I actually totally forgot. In the Steam version you can turn on the glyph mode?
You can, yes.
Think to do that. Okay.
Yes, you can. Yep. Yes.
I had this. Is it yesterday? I think it was last night. I had this urge to play. I almost booted it up. I was like, I kind of miss Dwarf Fortress. Maybe I should keep playing it. So.
Yep, you create a character or party from any race playable in the world. So dwarf, human, elf, goblin, necromantic, experiment, animal, person, etc. Then visit any part of the world where you can learn about what ails the inhabitants and optionally go on quests to end those troubles or get brutally murdered trying.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. That is just...
It never ends, this game.
That's the game.
It really is. This is this is a forever game for some people, I'm sure. So, yeah. All right, we can do it. We can nail one more email. Close it out. It's also short, and it's from Artemage, who suggested this whole Dwarf Fortress run to begin with.
It's his fault. Is this our last one for today?
This is the last one for the night.
Oh, we did it. Okay.
Yep.
Subject: iterative experience at the cost of depth. Okay. Artemage from Artemage. Hey devs, been a while since I provided you with my good-natured abuse. Maybe I'll play nice and carry on that streak a little longer. We'll have to see how the email plays out. First, as much as my suggestion of this game was meant as a silly idea because this game makes XCOM seem like Pong in systemic complexity, I'm rather glad you took it up. There has been a lot of fantastic analysis of the game over the past several weeks, and taking the opportunity to examine it at different stages of release is a novel experience we aren't likely to see again. Yeah. But I think this did cut back. This did cut back a little due to the nature of your show and Dwarf Fortress. There had to be a lot of start again. Yes, I agree with him. You've not been able to figure the game out in a way that looks at the systems and results that make this game have its lasting legacy outside of the unique development and release process provided by two brothers for 16 years. Which brings me to wonder, do you feel that you got what you wanted out of the series? If you had the time of a retired person, do you think you'd have wound up where you are in understanding now? And do you think you'll return to this in a manner similar to Brett with Kingdom Hearts to give us occasional updates on your experience and notable events within? I assure you, we shan't be satisfied if the tale of the Very Pouty Bard from Deauville ends here with no resolution. Take care, Artemage. Yes, I agree.
I have not yet reopened that save with the Very Pouty Bard, so we shall see if I ever go back to that.
Oh man, you're just going to leave her there.
She's there. She's on the machine. It could happen. You never know. It's, there could be a hardware failure as well. I mean, it's we're in a real razor's edge with technology these days. You never know what's going to happen. So we shall see whether I ever get back to the Very Pouty Bard. I'm thinking I might move it onto my, I'm assuming I can just migrate the save by copying stuff over the network. I might move it onto my laptop so it's easier for me to noodle with. But do I feel like we got I think we got a very good understanding of some of the early experience of the game, for sure. And sort of the path towards mastery ? Or at least greater enjoyment of its deeper and deeper systems. I think actually I actually really like the very early game. Like I really liked the first 3 hours. Like I really enjoyed that. And when I started getting past that point, that's when the stress part of it got to me, whereas the first 3 hours were kind of like, okay, everything's kind of okay. Like things might be trending badly, but you still feel like, I mean, in your case, you did recover, but you still feel like you can recover. And you're also learning a lot, and you're already like thinking, oh, next time I'm going to do this. Like I learned this time, it took me a while to realize maybe not dig so many levels deep so fast. And, because I was constantly doing that, I was like, oh, I wonder what's on the next level. That's the kind of player I am. I want to know. I want to uncover a lot of the map, but I think you really want to do that more slowly than I do.
Yeah, I would build out one layer more before I went down.
Yeah. And I think that one with the Very Pouty Bard has like 7 levels or 8 levels of depth.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, the bottom levels are just like, long lines of me digging in various directions to see what I find. So it's not, and I have no way to get it. I mean, anything you bring back from down there takes forever, so it's not efficient, it's very inefficient. But I learned that from that. And I subsequently had 2 other games that I started on the same, on the Steam build, and in both of those I still was learning stuff, and I actually really like that. It's something I talked about in the final episode, is like, or maybe the next to last episode, was the that the pace of that learning slows, the deeper you go into the game, and then that's where I feel, I mean, I think even if I was a retired person and could spend a lot more time with it, I'm not sure I like literally could, because it is, as we alluded to earlier, such a stressful game. I find the game, a lot of games when I play them, I kind of step up and I stand up and I'm like, even Dark Souls, I felt this way, believe it or not, like after a certain point, not initially, like not when I was first, playing it for the first time, since, the years since I played Demon Souls. But once I got kind of over that hump and kind of like got used to the rhythm and like got more familiar with it again, I was like, okay, yeah, I can just kind of sit and play this. And you have to be pretty focused, but there's also times where you're just kind of figuring things out. And, and it felt kind of a good tension back and forth. And then, but this one feels like you always have to be on. You've got to constantly be paying attention to everything. And it never feels like it lets up. And, you can set some goals for yourself, and then something will happen that disrupts those goals. And now you're like in high reactivity mode. And like, there's just never a time where you feel like, okay, everything's just kind of humming along. So the early hours of the game are the most fun for me, because of those times where I'm like already looking forward to, okay, here's what I'll do next time to deal with that problem that I just had. So
there's
been my experience.
It's also the I don't know if the sunk cost fallacy is the best use here, but it's a little bit like that for me to some degree, in that the longer I play a sim game like this, the more I feel like I need to like make it work, because I've spent so much time on a particular, that happens to me in Civ all the time, where I'm like, I'm so many hours in. I really should, even though I think you made that point last episode, or one of the episodes, of like, kind of like you've crossed the fork has happened in the road, and you took the wrong one. And it's like, well, I don't think I can recover from this. And then, but yeah, occasionally you can, like you talked about, and I had some good recoveries, but in Dwarf Fortress, but so that's sort of like, it's this mounting responsibility, if you will, where it's like the further you go, the more you have, the more you're like, oh, and then that weight just gets heavier and heavier. That being said, I know, because of the other Sims I've played and gotten kind of, semi hooked on, I know there is that hump. I know you can get over it. I know there's that sort of sweet spot of flow where you're like, okay, I get it, and I'm comfortable in the game, and I can really kind of keep things going, and there's still some surprises, but I don't freak out every time something bad happens. I just know in this game's case, it's a long ways out. And to his question on like, did I feel like we accomplished what we set out to do? I actually went in, not having played the game, but roughly knowing what it is. I went in knowing we were not going to get to late game or even mid game. I kind of knew we were probably going to largely look at this pretty academically. We were going to get the basics. We were going to go through the flow of it. I do wish I would have spent, I do wish I hadn't had to start over as many times as I did, because because I could have gotten farther. But I don't know why, but I never thought to save my game as I was going. I always just played a Civ straight through, and then it just always, was a catastrophe. And I probably would have gotten farther if I had made some forks of my own. But anyway, yeah, I mean, to his question, I'm like, I don't think we got as far as I would have liked to have gotten, and I went in knowing that, like I was prepared for it, and I'm not surprised. But like I just mentioned, I did feel the urge to play this weekend, and so I won't promise anything, but if there are updates to be had, I will bring them to the cast.
Yeah, I mean, this one was unique in that we did play 3 different versions of the same game.
Super weird situation, yeah.
Yeah, and we probably could have skipped the most recent glyph-based version and just gone straight to the Steam version to see just what I think if I had to do it over again, I might have.
We should have done one in the middle.
Yeah, or something like that.
Right
yeah, just to see that evolution a little bit more distinctly, because the differences between those, other than the graphical change, play wise, were not substantial. Although the graphics actually make a substantial change all of their own. But like we talked about, that would probably be the one thing I would do differently. Yeah, no, I figured we wouldn't get that far in this either. And my eyes get big looking at you could make a whole barony, and I'm like, I'm never going to make it. It's just not going to happen. That doesn't fit into my life at all. So we're not in a place where I can do that. I'm not,
the thing that's gotten me, the thing that gives me hope that I might play again, actually very specifically, is the pocket size world. Because for whatever reason, it kind of focuses and it doesn't overwhelm me as much mentally of okay. And I don't know why, it's not, obviously you can just focus on any area of a bigger world anyway. It's not that big of a deal, but I don't know. When I played that pocket sized world, it was okay, this is manageable. It's it made my anxiety go down. So I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes sense. I mean, one of the things that happens to me, it's happened to me in all 3 of these worlds, is eventually I get attacked by something, and it's because I haven't really worked out how best to defend my fortress, how best to build walls around it so that things can't get in. And I just always end up with a point where I'm like, oh man, I've got combat wombats in fighting me again, and or whatever, I've got something has gotten in that I didn't want to, or some room has gotten, all filled up with rancid, purple garbage because I don't know, I marked something as all when I meant it to be everything but refuse, et cetera, et cetera. And I just shake my head. I'm like, well, do I have a save that's recent? Oh no, it was an hour ago. Never mind. I just deal with it. Yeah. I mean, it's a game that I definitely see the appeal. And like I said, I'm glad it didn't exist when I was in grad school. So, because that would have happened. I could have spent a lot of time on this back then. So that's instead I was playing Magic the Gathering. So
yeah, also worthy.
Yeah, also worthy. So we did it. We got to the end. We went over an hour by 20 minutes, but we made it to the end of our email. So we are caught up, with the exception of a singing review that I've still got to learn the Flight of the Conchords for. My voice is not ready for it tonight. As you can hear, I'm getting a little raspy. But we'll get to it. We
also have calling the shots.
We have more calling the shots questions
to trickle through.
We'll trickle through those as well and kind of use those. But we will be starting a new series soon. We are, as Pocket suggested, going to do some more themed ones. We have another short, I think, just 2-game series we're going to do next. And then we'll see. We actually haven't talked beyond that because that's months away. Oh boy!
I do have a thought there, though. That
I'm sure. Yeah.
Don't think I've told you about, but we haven't.
Yes, we haven't made it a thing, but we did. I think we did talk about it. Yeah, I'd be willing to do that. I was actually talking with one certain D&D player about that as a possible thing for us. So I think we're on the same page there. So those emails, of course, were sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. Thank you again for the review. We always appreciate those. That's why we read them out on the cast. If you use I get the Apple ones mostly, but if we don't read it for some reason, we probably didn't see it. So just let us know where you put it in. Maybe send it our way, and we can, via email, and we can read it on the air, so that you too can have the first year of your child's life imprinted with Dev Game Club. Apparently, that's a thing.
Amazing. I mean, that's so humbling. It
really is.
And humbling.
When I first read that email from Pockets, I was like, oh man, I hope I don't lose it when I'm reading this on the cast.
Yeah, thanks, Pockets. That's nice. Yeah,
it really is. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com. I do this every week, and yet still every now and again. Or on Twitter at devgameclub, where you can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
Someday he promises to return to Twitch on twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr. Yeah. I make no such promises.
No, I do promise. The days are so long.
We're slammed.
Maybe I need to do it at a different time or something, but I will.
Yep, at some point. I look forward to it. We also these days have a Discord. Go check it out. If you go to the Twitter account and go to the pin thing, you can find a link that should be a permanent link for an invite. But if for whatever reasons that's not working, shoot an email, DM us on Twitter or whatever. I'll get you one. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers. And our logo, our merch store, also linked in that Twitter bio or Twitter pinned thing. And our Discord are by Mark Garcia, along with some others moderating. Have fun reading all your email this week, and good night.
Good night.